Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Mastering Dungeons, your favorite tabletop news, interviews, game design podcast for the tabletop gaming industry. I'm Shawn Merwin here with the 10-fingered Teos Abadia. He's got all of them,
I don't
and
want
they're
to show
all
off, but
working.
I do have all 10.
Yes. Yeah. Speaking of showing off, Teos, I hear you took a very special trip this week.
This is true. I am very, very lucky. I got to go visit the fine folks at MCDM and work with them. It was really cool. It was like a writer's room environment where we like when you watch a movie and it has like an awesome effects budget, but you're like, I don't know about the plot.
Mm-hmm.
This was like the meeting to make sure that didn't happen. And
Okay.
we worked through an upcoming release that they've been talking about a fair bit. I think there'll be more information forthcoming, but it's called Crack the Sun. And if that doesn't sound like awesome, I mean it obviously it does. And it's for
Yeah.
a reason. And so that's why, it has like a mental effects budget that's amazing. And now I think it has a great plot to go with it. And I'm really excited about working on it, helping with it. And while I was there, look what came into my
Ooh.
little grubby hands. I'm holding up the Draw Steel Heroes book. And if that wasn't enough, I mean, I would have come just for this.
Yeah.
Who needs a meeting when you can have the both Draw Steel
Monster
books
book.
in my hands, and they're gorgeous. They're wonderful. I got
Yep.
to say thank you to the fine folks who work on them really hard. So that was really really neat. Great end of my week last week. And then I did a lot of hiking, and I went to a small town kind of Halloween thing, and did a bunch of shopping. And then I came home to find out that apparently my city of Portland's supposed to be a war-torn area. So I can only say that it's important to trust good news sources. And
Yes, obviously, you survived the war-torn
mm,
area. I, on the other hand, was visited by family. So speaking of war-torn,
speaking of
yeah,
Halloween,
yeah, I am not in a,
yeah,
and yet, yeah, that pretty
mm,
much sums it
I
up.
send you the virtual hug. I'm sorry.
Thank you. But fortunately, we have great listeners out there, and they send us questions sometimes, and we got a real doozy this week. It's going to just be the one because this one got me going, Teos. It is from PT McKim via our Patreon Discord. uh, PT says, I'm really enjoying your deep dives into Daggerheart and Draw Steel, and I've listened to actual plays by the creators of both. The systems seem great in different ways, but they both claim to promote epic cinematic narrative driven play. I did notice that even the game designers themselves in actual plays often had to pause and think about complex rules, look things up, and the players often forgot what some of their abilities do. Also, there is a lot of stuff to keep track of, whether it's hope or victories or counting whether something has happened enough times to trigger a power, and so on. It seems like this gamification of narrative elements could actually work against immersion in a smooth flowing story. Meanwhile, I'm running a Shadow Dart campaign, which is getting pretty character and story based despite the system's reputation of being a minimalist dungeon crawl. But because it's minimalist, we can just keep all of the story stuff and the narrative stuff as story and don't have to figure out how fiddly mechanics for it work. I'm not saying one is better than the other, but the question is, do all these elaborate mechanics really promote an interesting story, or do they just crowd the mind with too many details to keep track of? Uh, okay, I'm going to go on here for a minute, Teo. So if you want to get a word in, now's your chance.
And no, I mean, I'm excited to hear you go on, and I love learning from this. So please take it away, and I'll enjoy a nice sip of coffee.
Excellent. Okay, so the really, really, really short answer to this is, what does story mean to you? Right? Is story the barbarian hit the dragon with her axe? Is that the story? Is the story because the barbarian's village was decimated by dragons and she's been training her whole life to kill dragons? The barbarian is really adept at hitting the dragon with her axe. Or is the story the barbarian was once a dragon herself, and now she is very much conflicted about hitting the dragon with her axe, so much so that there's a very good chance that she won't be able to? Right? You see where I'm going here. Now, now I'm going to get literary on y'all, so strap in. There's a British novelist named E.M. Forster, who was during his time probably considered one of the greatest fiction writers ever. He gave lectures, I believe it was at Trinity College, on the subject of fiction writing, which was sort of taboo at the time. It was like, don't talk about how to make things. The mysterious muse comes down and imparts this upon you. So he gave this series of lectures, and then they were collected into a book called Aspects of the Novel. And even today, in our postmodern, post everything world, lots of the stuff, lots of things that Ian Forster talked about are still referred to today from these lectures and this book. One of the most famous, and you might have heard it before, and probably also from me, was the answer to the question, "What's the difference between plot and story?" And Forrester's famous answer was, "A plot is uh, a plot is a narrative of events with the emphasis falling on causality. The king died and then the queen died is a story. The queen died and then the queen died. The king died and then the queen died of grief is a plot." So the of grief changes it from a story, what happened, to a plot, why did it happen? Now, for a lot of people over the decades since then, these terms have sort of switched places, where people think the story is all of the goodness in it, and the plot is just what happened. But we're going to stick with Forrester's thing here. So let's talk about how this all applies to tabletop role playing games. Pass fail games like D&D, where you roll that 20-sided die and you either hit or you miss. You either fail the save or you succeed on the save. There's some like save for half, right? There's those
Right.
little things, but for the most part, it's a pass fail system. Uh, that tends to make the game more about the story. What happened? In what order did these things happen? The causality is sort of because the die roll said so, right? There's not a lot of plot back there to muck
Right.
things up. If you bring the plot as is talked about in the question, the plot is brought by you separate from the mechanics of the game. But there was a reaction to this pass fail system of D&D in new sorts of game design. We got things like Fate. We got things like Apocalypse World because players and game masters wanted, to use Forrester's terms, to add plot to the story, right? They also wanted a game mechanical way to make sure that what happened connects back to the character and therefore to the plot more closely. So, if D&D is the barbarian hit or missed with her sword because of the die roll, Fate became the barbarian hit or missed the dragon because of a die roll, but also because of a series of choices that the players make during character creation and during gameplay, along with inclusion of other players and the game master. Right. That's why in Fate we get aspects of the novel, aspects of the character, and the player can and really has to go to those aspects and say, okay, I'm doing this thing and I'm better at doing this thing because of this, or the plot will get more complicated because of this. And then there's the currency of fate points that helps navigate that play, that helps make sure that it's not a one-sided push in any character's or the game master's direction. Right? You with me so far, Teos?
I'm absolutely with you. I'm loving it.
Okay. So let's go back to the question, right? The brunt of the original question. Do all these elaborate mechanics really promote an interesting story, or do they just crowd the mind with too many details to keep track of? I want to re-ask that question in a new way and get your answer here, Teos. Do all these elaborate mechanics allow the people who want to add plot to the story to do so in a way that remains viable both as a game and as a storytelling vehicle. Because I think that's the brunt of the question. If we take everything I just said and focus it down, that's what we're looking for.
Yeah. With the acknowledgement that the games aren't just trying to create a narrative, they are also doing many other things. But specific to this question, that's the question. And it's interesting because there are a lot of different kinds of players, right? And like I remember a player that I really, really enjoyed playing with. But at one point when this is back in like 3rd edition days, they said something and it caused me to like, narrow my eyes and go, what? And what it was is that they said something that suggested this big kind of backstory from their character. And I said, you haven't shared any of that with us. Because they acted as if they had. And they're like, oh, yeah, I guess that's all in my head.
Yes.
And it was really fascinating to me. Like, here's another is like, does the plot exist? Does the narrative exist when it's only in one player's head and hasn't expressed itself out loud to the other players? But this player had so much, and he started to talk a little bit about it. And it was like, wow, you're not telling us any of this. Like, we don't know any of your characters' motivations, backstory, anything, because you haven't shared any of it. It's just in your brain, and yet was happily existing in there and making a very rich experience for this player.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, so you have players like that, and then you have players who don't want it at all. You have players who want to do fun things like, run up the dragon's back and see what that causes. You have a lot there. And I think when it comes to creating a narrative, some of what's happening is these games are trying to help the various kinds of players put some ideas together, right? And prompt these kinds of reactions from players who may not do it so easily. For some groups, the easiest way to do it is to remove everything. Right? And if we just play Fiasco, we will have an amazing narrative because we've removed all the constructs that get in the way, and then it does work that way. But for other players, what you end up doing is just stabbing things, relentlessly and laughing at that, and that's all there is. But you can see the converse, like when we saw this a lot in 4th edition. I'm going to go back and forth there. In 4th edition, you would see tables where everybody got so into the fun mechanics of it all that they forgot what all of this represented, right? I mean, here are characters that are, sending shards of ice flying across the battlefield, and someone levitates and spins in the air and comes down, and the ground thunders, throwing everybody to the ground. And they're not describing that at all. They're like, burst 3, 20 points of damage to everybody. And they knock prone, right? Like, so you can get so into it that it doesn't happen. And that's where how the play shapes is a challenge. Like any game has a challenge, right? D&D has challenges. Draw Steel has challenges. And one of them, and for Daggerheart and Draw Steel specifically, that ability for your power to be evocative and narrative and create this form of tension between players, it requires some juice to make that happen in the same way that other things require that for D&D, right?
Yeah. Yes. All of that. And that's sort of my point here is Teos said there are different players that want different things. And the game that's going to win is the game that scratches that itch, that provides that experience to the most players, especially when you have different types of players sitting at the same table.
Yeah.
And so the question is, are all of these elaborate mechanics that you need to keep track of too much? Yes. Are they not enough? Also, yes. Are they too complicated? Yes. Are they too easy? Yes, depending on who is playing. And the game that can bring them all together and let them do their thing, like I said, is the game that wins. Right now, D&D is the game that won. Right? D&D is the game that won for a lot of reasons, but one of the main reasons is because people of different varieties and types can sit down and play. The storyteller can still tell a story. The tactician can still strategize. All of those things can still happen. Now, is there tension between them? Yes. When the person whose backstory is supposedly I hate all undead and now is buddy buddy with a lich because the lich is offering them power, right? That's
Or another
then the
PC is a
storyteller.
revenant.
Right. Then the storyteller says, "Well, this isn't working because you are breaking the plot."
Mhm.
Right? I understand the story is we're going through this, but you're breaking the plot because the plot says you hate all undead, and you're
Mhm.
not hating all undead. So th- that's one side of things. The other side of things is a term that my fellow folks at Encoded Designs came up with, very brilliant storytelling game design minds. The concept of latency.
Mhm.
Latency is we're telling a story. Now the game mechanics are going to take over. We want to
Right.
find the outcome, or we want to find what happens, or we want to find out why it happens.
Yeah.
And so we're telling the story, then, okay, pick up the dice, go to your character sheet, do the
Mhm.
things that the game requires you to do to get that result. Is the latency very short, or is the latency very long? There's nothing wrong with short or long latency, that, again, depending on the players.
Mhm.
Some players want to roll dice, consult charts, consult the stars, do all the things, take a poll of the other players, pull the Jenga piece out,
Yeah.
right? Do all the things. Then we say, oh, you missed,
Right.
right? Now, does it take 20 minutes to do that, or does it take 10 seconds to do that? Some people would say taking 20 minutes to do that has ruined the experience because the story has been interrupted. And in some ways, the plot has been interrupted by all of these things. Some people would say, I love that game, right? Because I want to strategize and roll lots of dice and do these lots of things
Yeah.
because they prompt me to get to the story. So, right, that's
Yeah.
another question of all of this.
Yeah.
If you have to stop and look up a rule.
Yeah, that latency is really worth noting because also these games are new, right? Like even when we play a
Mhm.
new edition, like 2014 when it came out, you still saw people play and forget that, like, oh, I can't actually cast a bonus action spell and a level one spell, right? Like two level one
Right.
spells, one's a bonus action. Then they just wouldn't know, and life continues and it's fine because the majority of those D&D rules felt like D&D, and there wasn't a lot of
Mhm.
lookup or brain processing involved. With games like both Daggerheart and Draw Steel, I have said when we reviewed it and when we first played it, I think this is too complicated for new players. And then what I
Mhm.
find is lots of fans that are like, I don't know what you're talking about. This is super engrossing and I'm loving every minute of it.
Mhm.
You're wrong. And they're right too, right? Like
Right.
it is
Right.
true that both things can be true. It is both a lot and it's super fun. And one of the things that can happen with light games like Pirate Borg or Shadow Dark or any of these is that the mechanics can be so light that the mechanic really does feel like it's doing very little for you.
Mhm.
And depending on who you are, that's an asset or not, right? But it can
Correct.
be too little. It can be a feeling of not being rewarded for what you've done, right?
Mhm.
Pirate Borg, I mean, and Shadow Dark as well. Like what you get when you level up can be random, and so it's not even a thing you chose. It's not you're not even investing your character to do a certain thing. It happened to you, and so that can
Mhm.
feel like it is jarring. What is the narrative when I don't even pick who I am, right?
Right.
Right. All of this can be argued, and yet someone is having a blast. And I think what you're saying is a great point, which is all of these are important factors to consider in game design, but how exactly it plays out takes some time to know.
Mhm.
I'll just say, and I'll stop here. But with fourth edition, one thing that was very interesting when we ran the Ashes of Athos campaign, which was very story heavy, very what does your character do? We were trying to, with the story itself of the adventures, prompt a great narrative.
Mhm.
And people would, there would be a space at a table, and we'd say to someone walking by, "Do you want to play?" "Oh, I don't know. I don't like fourth edition, or I don't like organized play." We'd convince them to sit down, and they'd go like, "Oh, if I had known fourth edition could be this, I would have been playing."
Mhm.
That happened
Right.
too many times for it to be okay. Like it
For
happened
sure.
because that is the reputation it had, and how it came off to too many people is a lack of understanding of what you could do with the system. that is a problem, right? If Daggerheart or Drawsteel find that too many players say that to it, I think that'll be a problem for the growth of those games.
Yeah. And that hits my last point perfectly, which is that's why I'm saying I'm not going to predict how well Drawsteel, Daggerheart, Cosmere, any of these new games does, because I see so many people say on their first play, this game was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And then on their 50th play, well, they don't get to their 50th play because somewhere between play 1 and play 50, they find the flaws, not flaws in the game, but flaws in their interaction with the game that makes them want something different.
Yeah.
So show me the game after you play a 50 session campaign. If your group then says, let's do this again with this other setting or with this other campaign, then you've won.
Yeah.
If it's, well, this was fun, but I want to go back to blank, then the game's good, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we know what game people are going to constantly go back to.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, Shadow the Demon Lord with its very fast leveling is a great way to get past that, where the game acknowledges, I know this game is not going to be the only thing you play in your life. So I'm going to make this a really cool, fast experience so that you can have an absolutely rewarding campaign in 10 sessions, right? And that's great.
Well, thank you so much for that wonderful question that elicited quite a stir, PT. And we will now move on to our news and commentary section here, starting with something out of the Forgotten Realms, sort of. We mentioned previously that three Forgotten Realms books were announced. Heroes of Faerun, Adventures in Faerun, and then a mysterious third digital book that would provide some more content. We now know that third book is a Magic the Gathering crossover with the Forgotten Realms called Lorwyn: The First Light. Again, this will be a digital-only book that will focus on Fae-inspired character options and monsters. You'll get 2 backgrounds, 2 feats, 2 magic items, 8 monsters, 2 new species, one being the Rhymekin, some advice on playing other species within this setting, 2 adventure examples, and a map that can be used in both of those adventures. What else do we know about this, Teos?
So to make this Magic the Gathering world be in the Forgotten Realms, sort of, it's a domain of delight in the Feywild, accessible through the Moonshae Isles. That's your Forgotten Realms world checkbox.
Yep.
It's a Magic the Gathering setting. It draws inspiration from Celtic folklore. And I think it excited a lot of folks who are familiar with that world when they heard about coming to D&D. Initially, the way the discussion took place, it sounded like what we were going to get was a new Magic the Gathering D&D crossover book. So one of the things that's unclear is, has this become a digital-only release? Or does the name First Light suggest there'll be a second light and we're still going to get a book down the road? I don't know. I once again call for this to be available in PDF format. I think it's really a shame to have these digital-only releases be in just that D&D Beyond format that is really hard to work with. And you just know this exists in a PDF somewhere out there, as most of these things do. And I would love to see that actual PDF be released. This will be available November 18th when the Forgotten Realms books release. And as with all the other digital add-ons, you will be able to buy it separately. So if you end up hearing that it's great, you can get it. You don't have to buy this ultimate bundle if you don't want to. The only thing that's exclusive to that is a map. So you know you will be able to get it later. The problem is just that format, right? Where it's not a format that sticks and becomes part of the lore of all the books that we have now and so on. And so I worry about that, and I'm curious whether there's a story there about why this became, if it did only become a digital release, you know, what happened there to change this away from being an actual book. It's too bad. I've enjoyed all the Magic the Gathering crossovers. I thought that especially Theros was just really an incredible book that designers for generations to come can turn to Theros and go, that's neat. That can really inspire me. And there's no question that it'll be forgotten, right? You can hold that book and you can see it. And yeah.
All right. Well, since we're talking about D&D Beyond, let's jump right into some updates that were put up on D&D Beyond. The first being that D&D Maps was once only available to people who subscribed. Now Maps is available to all users. So any account holder can use the Maps feature to access maps from the products, from the core products and the products that they bought. The Maps FAQ has also been updated. Character sheets now have party inventory. So this new feature adds a central area to track items that the entire party has access to use as group treasure. What else is going on there, Teos?
Well, we've got new Heroes of the Borderlands tutorial pages that are up. So if you have the starter set, there's a QR code in there, and you can get there and see Becca Scott walking through tutorial videos. And there's other informational links, and it's a nice sort of landing page to get you started on D&D Beyond and the starter set itself. We also, we're talking about upcoming releases. Well, coming not too long from now is the Stranger Things set, Stranger Things Welcome to the Hellfire Club. There is a D&D Beyond page talking us through that. The Imagined campaign, DM Eddie Munson was DMing at Hawkins High School. We get 4 complete adventures for levels 1 to 3 characters, and they've now been named The Vanishing Gnome, Scream of the Crop, Ballad of the Rat King, and Devil Metal Die. Complete with DM tips from Eddie to help you channel the metal energy of the Hellfires Club founder. You get a quick start guide, play guide, DM screen, 15 retro-styled pre-gens that look sort of like the Goldenrod sheets, 91 spell, magic item, and monster cards, 2 double-sided poster maps and in-world handouts, 72 punch-out tokens, and a set of dice. I think that's all great. I don't know what you think, Shawn. To me, the spell cards is the kind of thing that I love, except it only works, for those particular spells. And so, the utility drops down if you're not using pre-gens, because you don't want one thing on a card and one thing not on a card, right? So it has limited utility for all that it takes up.
True. Well, I mean, Teos, you're leaving out your favorite part of this whole show, which is the Eye on Minis with Teos Abadia. So what's going on with WizKids?
It's a mini macro. WizKids is telling us they have a new 12-inch dragon trophy, smaller than the other larger dragon head trophies. It is a red dragon with the look from 2024 rather than the old iconic red dragon. And it costs $250. So it's not quite the mini price. And I will remind folks, because I'm the kind of nerd who tracks this, that in 2016, the old enormous red dragon head that sold for $299 versus this $250. The red dragon head currently sells at $500. So that's trophy inflation for you, where we can say that we're saving people a lot of money and for a smaller one, but well, are we?
True story. And we reported, but really fell off the radar, that there is an Onslaught mini skirmish game. Mm-hmm. And as you might expect from us not hearing much about it, that it might not be as explosive as was originally hoped. There will be a new expansion called the Tomb of Horrors. But what's the bad news here, Teos?
It comes with paper tokens and still costs $60. Yeah, I don't know. They're clearly trying to do a lot. Onslaught is a good game. I've played it. To me, the highlight of the game is the fact that it comes with really, really gorgeous miniatures. Like, if you like miniatures, it's worth considering buying the set, even at its original higher price, but you can also find it on sale all over the place, because those miniatures are just so gorgeous. And so it is, to me, very sad that they are, the latest expansion will come with paper tokens. They keep trying to relaunch this. To me, it always comes down to the problem of who is the audience for this. If you play a game of miniatures skirmish that is as long as a D&D one-shot could have been, then I probably would prefer to play D&D, and that's a problem. And so is this for an entirely different audience? Then why is it D&D branded? There's just so much it gets in the way, I think, of what this product and other products before that are like it try to be.
Mhm.
I'm surprised we've had as many expansions to Onslaught as there have been. I wouldn't be shocked if this isn't the last because WizKids seems to really want to invest in this game, but I don't know that it's there.
Well, speaking of being there, Magic the Gathering is going not there, but maybe into Federation space. We got an announcement that said, "The ship is yours, Captain. Engage with the unforgettable crews, adversaries, and starships from across 60 years of Star Trek history. Your continuing mission to boldly go where no one has gone before." With a release date of November 2026, it looks like we are getting a Magic the Gathering set expansion, who knows what, but it is Star Trek themed. And this just made me think of the comparison between what Monopoly Go got, to everyone at Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro's great
Yeah.
delight, and then the magic of the Final Fantasy set basically blew that right out of the water in one day.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if they're looking to replicate that with this wild uh, Magic the Gathering set, bringing Star Trek to your card table.
Yeah, yeah, and I don't know whether this is a secret layer versus a set release. My guess is this is a secret layer. Like there was recently a Spider-Man, but it does look like it's an actual different release, not a secret layer. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, all of these crossovers have been huge, right? And so if this is a full release, I suspect this will be enormous as well, crossing the streams of geek fandoms. Which has worked really well for them with Lord of the Rings and others. And so, Magic seems to right now be on fire. And for everybody there at the company, I hope it keeps going boldly forward.
As bold as it gets.
Mm-hmm.
A bold character in fiction related to D&D was Drizzt, the Ranger Drow. And in an interview with Polygon magazine, author R.A. Salvatore said that he may be done with Drizzt. He's been using the character since 1987, and this interview says that in his upcoming book, which comes out October 7th, Drizzt's daughter, Brianelle, will be the main character. And Salvatore admits he may never go back. Here are a couple of the quotes. "I'm not saying I'm going back to Drizzt. I don't know that I ever will. I don't know that I ever need to. And I expect I'll finish the books I have under contract. And then when the urge hits me again, I'll figure out what I want to write and why I want to write it. And then I'll write it." Uh, Salvatore has been focusing on retirement. He has 8 grandkids who all live in the area. So he talks about little league games, hockey games, drum lessons, and watching his grandchildren grow up. He's even running D&D for his 5-year-old grandson. And this is news for people that remember how big those books were. And it reminded me that we now talk about, well, why is 5th edition so prolific, right? Oh, it's because of Stranger Things, and it's because of Critical Role or Dimension 20. We forget that during a previous generation, so many people came to D&D through these novels, through Forgotten Realms novels or other novels of their type, with Drizzt Do'Urden being probably the most famous or infamous character in any of those books that captured the imagination of a bevy of new gamers.
Yeah, and there are about 40 novels. I always have to look it up, and it always blows my mind every time. 40 novels with Drizzt in it, and good for him. Like, I love that so many people, it's just a relentless, can't even envision an end because
Hmm.
it's just always pursuing, right? And I love the idea that he's like, what's important to me is my grandkids. Like, good for you, R.A. Salvatore. I'm all down with
Yeah.
that. I miss his hilarious persona that when he'd be on the D&D podcast with Shelley Mazanoble and Greg Tito. He's a very funny guy to listen to, and his stories of sort of bucking the system and deliberately coming up with bad dwarf names and things like that. Great. Like, yeah, do whatever you want, and I think it's great. I mean, he's done way more than anybody should ask for, and put up with so much over the history of TSR trying to steal his characters away from him and punish
Hmm.
him and so on. So a lot of really interesting angles to his story, and it's great.
Yeah. Also, a lot of different angles coming to us from Cosmere. There have been some recent releases. There's an adventure called Speak the Words. Speak the Words is an adventure designed to highlight the Stormlight campaign settings focus on heroism, oaths, and war. Perfect for one-shot play, but also could be adapted into an ongoing campaign. So this 16-page adventure is for third-level characters, coming also with 6 pre-gens, 2 battle maps, and player aids. We have more adventures called the Stormlight Scenarios. Teos, take us through what that means.
Yeah, so Stormlight Scenarios is 7 adventures that are all easy to run across tiers 1, 2, and 3. They take you all the way across different areas of the world, the Herdazian countryside, the depths of Urithiru, to the cliffs of Marabithia, and there's about a 10% chance I said one of those correctly.
I
And a
like it.
wide range of characters, challenges, tones, and scenes, which is nice for a product. Each scenario is balanced for 4-player characters to complete within 2 to 3 hours, perfect for a one-shot or ongoing campaign as a side quest. And the last book is Advanced Adversaries. And this is several adversaries that can challenge your RPG adventuring parties. You have additional tier 2 adversaries. You get upgraded and downgraded fused variants, surge biting modules that you can easily add to any adversary, and a legendary item called Nightblood.
All right. We will jump quickly into our creator corner here, starting with The Last Caravan, Westward Bound. Ted Bushman, with help from Mastering Dungeons supporter Graham Ward, has launched a new expansion to The Last Caravan RPG. This RPG is about trying to take a caravan trip in the wake of an alien invasion of North America. The campaign itself provides The Lost Highway, which is a 140-page hardcover expansion, a Westward Bound softcover zine with rules for playing a pack of dogs, plus maps, the core book, and a deluxe box set. You have until October 16th to back that.
Yeah,
And
and
we have,
I'll
oh,
just
go ahead.
quickly say, it's just out of reach, so I can't show off my copy of the first one, but I highly recommend checking it out. It's really neat.
Sweet. And What's My Foundation is also a project to be on your radar where you can build worlds in any TTRPG. Uh, it's a Kickstarter that will be going until October 10th. This is from Runic Press, and they need about 2,000 more dollars to fund. This is a system agnostic approach to world building, which will take you from the very beginning of your world, like the origin of the universe, the shaping of the world, the rise of civilizations, and then through guided prompts, structured tools, and creative exercises, you can craft cosmologies, mythologies, ecologies, histories that give everything a deeper purpose.
Yeah,
So
pretty
you
neat.
can use this to prepare your next campaign or what have you.
Awesome.
Links to all of that in our show notes. That was our news and commentary section this week.